Welcome to the meeting of the Audit and Risk Management Committee. My apologies for being a couple of minutes late. Hopefully make up the time. First item on the agenda is Sederunt. Apologies for absence.
Good morning. We have 9 members present and an apology from Councillor Stitt. Councillor Scobie may be along in a moment.
Okay. Next item on the agenda then, declarations of interest. Any members, any declarations of interest? I'll take silence as indicating that no one has any. Thank you. The next item is the minutes of the meeting of the 20th of February. For approval, I would move that as a correct record of the business transacted.
Happy to second, Chair.
No dissenting voices? No. Okay. Approved. Item number 4 is the interim management letter from PwC on the 2013-14 audit of the Council. There's a report by the Director of Finance. My understanding is that I think it's Tony Levinson from PwC will be speaking to the report, and Fiona McLaren from the Finance Department. This is an interim management letter from the external auditors in respect of the audit of last year's accounts. Colleagues, there's one issue arising from the interim visit, and a review has been undertaken of actions arising from the 2010-11 to 2012-13 audit process. I trust you'll agree with me that it's pleasing to note that of the 19 outstanding actions, 5 have been agreed as closed, 3 reported as closed subject to verification, and 9 are in progress with 2 not yet due. I'll ask Tony to provide members with any further information she thinks is appropriate, and then open the matter up for questions and debate. On that basis, Tony, would you care to take us through?
I suppose I'll just give a bit of context behind what the interim process is about. So as part of the ISA auditing standards, which we abide by, we are required to understand the control environment at the Council and to decide whether there are any controls in place that we can then test and place reliance on as part of our audit process. So in doing this, we decided that payroll and non-domestic rates were 2 systems whereby there were sound controls in place that we thought that by testing these would be able to take controls reliance, which would reduce the amount of substantive testing we do at the year end. So this paper is the results of that testing plus the results of the follow-up. And as you'll see in Appendix 1 from the payroll and the NDR testing, we found 2 new control recommendations. The first one was around the pension database access, which I'd like to clarify is different from the pension payroll, which is iTrent, which will actually do the payments of the pensioner amounts and take contributions from people. So Access is more the pension admin database, and the testing around that was where we had our finding that the information on pension members wasn't up to date. However, we've had assurances from officers that at the year end a reconciliation is performed between any details on the iTrent system and the Access system to ensure that for the year end accounts purposes that the information is up to date. And that is something that we will be looking to test when we're out in June, July. And the second new finding was something we graded as a low risk. It was deemed as a one-off scenario, basically, whereby information that we were looking to find from leavers who had a leavers checklist confirming the date they left the organisation couldn't be found, and we'd been told by officers that had been disposed of by mistake as before it was scanned onto the system. So we're happy to say that that was a one-off. It's not something that we found throughout our testing, but it's something that we've put on there just to remember when we come back next year to do our testing to flag to officers that is the kind of information that we'll be looking to be retained. But I'm happy to take any further questions on that or the follow-up if you've got anything.
Thanks very much, Tony. Colleagues, George.
Thanks, Chair. No, it was a question I had on the the pension thing, which has been covered quite adequately. I think I was just a wee bit concerned, you know, when you read the recommendations and read the management response to the recommendations. Management seemed to be saying, well, we're doing fine, but the recommendations were saying, well, you maybe need to do better, I think. But I think I've had a fair enough explanation as to what actually happens. I don't know if Fiona wants to say anything about that.
You wish to respond, Fiona? No. Joe?
Thank you. It's actually on item 8 on the papers, which is to do with the amendments to supplier data. I noticed that it says under the status completion to be confirmed by internal audit, and I know that there's some trials going to be taking place in the summer. I'm presuming that once this actually happens, it will be fed back to this committee, but I just wondered about that.
Fiona?
Yes, all the recommendations are fed back to committee through Kevin's reports later in the year.
Any other questions? David?
It says it's addition and removal of starters and leavers within the pension database, and I suppose it covers other aspects of where we're using electronic means to keep records. Is there any reason why the information isn't put into one part of the database and or right to iTrent is either put in or removed for iTrent, why the same shouldn't happen with the Accise without having to go into it separately? Or would that cause a lot more problems if you put duff information in one that's got to get into the other?
I think part of the problem is that the two systems don't actually speak to each other directly, so the information has to go into both systems. So it has to be manually input to both systems, so they don't necessarily talk to each other.
Do you want to come back, Nat?
That's part of the concern. We're putting systems in that don't talk to one another. Are we increasing the workload on people, or is it safer to have them not speaking to one another, just in case a mistake's made in one and it'll be transferred to the other?
The issue is always the manual inputting, sir. Human error. We are endeavouring to have all our systems talk to one another. That's something that we've introduced controls in relation to in the last 2 years, where the IT people have a lot more say in which systems are installed and which systems require to talk to one another. There is an issue in that suppliers will supply you with anything that you ask for until you actually get it into the place, and then you've got to put what are called, and this is a Luddite talking, put what are called patches on it to make it update it, and sometimes these patches are still in the course of being developed when you're asking for them. And we've had issues there with iTrent as well as other computer systems in the place, but you can be assured that we are doing our best to ensure that now all systems are compatible. They weren't necessarily compatible in the past because there wasn't the central control on it, but now that we've put that central control on, we'll address the issues as we go along. But in the meantime, yes, we accept that manual inputting is always a problem in that somebody can transpose a figure or something like that. So I do accept that point, sir, but obviously there's a quality assurance goes in there. Both the internal and the external auditor are responsible for ensuring that there is that quality assurance given.
Satisfied? Thanks. Any other questions? Okay, can we go then to the recommendations? Section 2 of the report. We're asked to note the issues raised in the external auditor's interim management letter and the actions being taken to actions identified to address these issues. So take it that's noted, colleagues. And secondly, we're asked to note that this committee will be kept informed of progress on each of the issues raised to ensure that the recommended actions are undertaken prior to the identified deadlines. Again, noted. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item number 5. Mr. Haswell.
Chairman, can I say the member of staff from Education Service who was coming to present this report has unfortunately on sick leave today. and the senior officer has had other business to attend to, I'm asking members of the defer consideration of this particular report so that we can have an education officer here to answer members' questions and address the report. I don't think the report's time critical, sir. So I would hope that members would agree to that. It will give you a better insight into how we risk manage in education.
Colleagues, any comments? Vice Chair?
Thanks, Chair. I would agree with the deferral, and for a couple of reasons. I think the risk management update report here is a little bit different than what we're actually used to. When you look at the next report on PHE, for instance, at least there's a matrix there you can actually follow. This education service report has actually just got bullet points. And when you look later on item 9 for the data protection risk management education services, that's not classed as a risk in the education services, yet we've had issues like Moffat Academy and things like that. So it's not been highlighted in their risk. So I think it'd be right to defer, but I would like to see it come back as perhaps a joint report on the two, and make sure that a matrix is there, but also ensure that data protection is actually within the report.
As far as I'm concerned, colleagues, that's eminently sensible. So in the circumstances, will we agree to defer not only item 5 but also item 9A on the basis that we amalgamate the reports and that we do have the risk matrices when they're brought back to the next meeting of this committee? That acceptable? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item number 6, and this is Planning and Environment Services, Risk Management Update, report by the Director of Planning and Environment Services. Again, it's a similar report to the previous one, and it deals with the Planning and Environment Services Risk Management Update. The risk register is set out in Appendix 2 of the report, and Alistair Speedy, I was about to say Stuart Cameron as well, but Alistair Speedy's here, as it were, to answer questions on the various aspects of the report. Vice Chair.
I don't know if Alistair wants to add anything to the report, but maybe I get a question after that, Alistair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. No, I don't have anything to add to the report at this time. Stuart Cameron is on leave, and that's why I'm here in his place. Thank you.
Chairman. And just looking at through the risk management development process that you're working with, Alistair, are you confident that this would support any issues that arise during the work plan that you've actually got with any of the business plan that you've got? You would be happy that these risks would be mitigated with the action plan that you've actually got in place?
Yeah, I'm confident that we have processes in place within P&E that are managing risk on a regular basis. We still have a number of members of staff at service manager level to be trained and heads of service level to be trained. We have been using risk management techniques for a while. In fact, members of the Economic Environment Infrastructure Committee will be aware that when we monitor our capital expenditure programme, we actually have a risk matrix attached to that as well. The matrix that's on the back of this report is the current risks that are in our business plan, and members can see that on Covalent. These are about to be refreshed totally when we report back our business plan refresh to the July committee. So each of these risks will be going through in some detail and refreshed totally.
By all means, please.
A lot of the risks that you see obviously involve partners as well, such as Swestrans and our Shanks and people like that. Are they on board with this risk register as well, and are they happy to go along with what your conclusions are on this?
Absolutely, Vice Chair. It's very important that when we work with partners that they understand in the partnership that we have what the risks are. When you're trying to manage things through and you're relying on a third party or a partner, it's essential that they understand the priorities that we have to deliver, they understand members' desires, they understand administration's priorities and what we have to deliver within the budget, etc., etc.
Graham.
Thanks, Chair. It's on page 38. It's about grants. A question for Alistair. To be developed, other than European funding, what other grants are available?
Sorry, Councillor, but could you just repeat
Page
that question?
38 is service. It's to do with grants, and it says in the comment to be developed. Other than European funding, which the council gets, what other funding can be developed?
Right, well, we have a number of grants that we get from European money that we use to match fund our capital expenditure programme, and there are very key risks in receiving that money because it has to be spent in accordance with the specification that comes with the grant, and we have to ensure that we cover off all the risks associated with that, because if we don't, and we don't spend the money appropriately, then the council can be left with having to pay that money back. Now, likewise, if we give out grants as a committee or as a service, then again we associate with that grant a specification of how that money should be spent, and we have to monitor that it is spent appropriately, and there'll be a risk register that will develop that accompanies that.
I think what Graham was asking is obviously there's European funding available. Is there any other funding that we get from any other source that we have to manage as well, that there could be a risk associated with?
There'll be a number of potential grants from government themselves, apart from Europe, and there may also be grants from various agencies associated with countryside or environment or anything like that. So there's a large spectrum of potential grants, and obviously one of the key areas that we try to achieve is to get grants to match fund the capital expenditure or the revenue expenditure we have. For example, Sustrans, for example, the cycle organisation, they give grants that we try and match fund some of our sustainable travel projects.
Thanks, Chair. I know in agricultural terms they get land management contracts, they get European funding for agricultural buildings. Sometimes these schemes maybe run up to a period of 3 years. That's all I'm trying to benchmark it along to see what other funding was available. I know the agricultural sector is struggling to get funding now. The European grants are drying up.
Okay, I have three members wanting in. There's Patsy, Alistair and David.
Thank you, Chair. It's on the corporate projects, particularly to do with the local development plan and SHIP. It's sitting there in our matrix, which is very useful when we get it in colour, and I thank you for that, because that's a good way of seeing. It's sitting at the moment sort of in a high risk. I hope the likes of the local development plan is not in the high risk, or are we being warned that there are problems with that? And also the SHIP, which I thought was working very well at the moment, but just wondered.
Local development plan, if members understand that this risk matrix was developed and included in our business plan of last year, and at that time we were just developing the local development plan, so we did not know what the landscape looked like beyond. We're now in a position where the local development plan is with the Scottish Government reporters. We've had 2 days of hearings just in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and we are awaiting the report now during May from the reporters. So we've moved on quite a distance from when this risk matrix was developed, and that will be totally refreshed in our business plan report in July. So it'll look a completely different risk at this stage. On the SHIP, that's managed by John Lynch, and we've actually removed that from our business because strategic housing now sits in customer and community services. So I wouldn't really like to comment on the SHIP. It is working very well, but again, the risk that you see in front of you is one that was developed last year in the business plan, and it will be refreshed as we refresh them ongoing.
So just to follow up, so look, the target risk rating has come down. So that is that is accurate then. Yeah, good.
Alistair?
Thanks, Chair. I would seek clarification from the Director with reference to the significant service risk PESO2, which is shown on page 34, and again on the risk register appendix 2 on page 39. I'm at a loss to understand the description. It says too much, the risk is described, too much biodegradable MSW landfilled. In my layman's mind, that suggests to me that if it's biodegradable, it'll surely be going away. So I don't understand how it's classified as a risk, but maybe I would like to be enlightened on that one, please.
Right, the risk relates to the EU landfill directive for waste diversion. And we have targets within our waste PFI contract and targets within our own business plan and targets that the government has set as in diverting biodegradable waste away from landfill. So the target is to landfill the least amount of biodegradable waste we can to meet the targets. And it's biodegradable waste, if you put to landfill, that creates methane gas when it rots, and methane gas is 13 times more powerful than CO2. So it would increase our carbon footprint, it would increase lots of things, and it would also break these targets. So the description is, the risk description is too much biodegradable municipal solid waste is landfilled. And that's what we don't want to happen. We want to hit the targets and be as little as possible being landfilled. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. That's helpful. Thank you. So, how do we divert the biodegradable waste away? Do we have systems for extracting the methane and using it, or is that on the table?
Well, currently we are diverting 66% of our waste away from landfill, and we do that by the use of the EcoDeco system that we have and other systems that we have with recycling. We are the largest diverters of waste in Scotland. Members will be well aware that when SEPA produced their statistics, we don't feature very well in the recycling table. Our current recycling rate's about 22%, but where we do feature is in the diversion of waste away from landfill, and we're the best diverters on the mainland in Scotland. And that very much mirrors our waste PFI contract, because our waste PFI contract was signed under the EU landfill directive legislation, which was 10 years ago. We are now in a new era where the next 10 years will be measured through the zero waste regulations. And that's where we've had to, under statute, introduce curbside collections and collect food separately, which is biodegradable, and that will be diverted away from landfill. So in the end, we very much moved to almost zero waste going to landfill in Dumfries and Galloway.
Thanks. That sounds like good news. That's a story that maybe should get out and about.
Thank you. David?
Aye, thanks, Chair. It's contracts, grants and partnerships where you're giving out funding to different bodies and there doesn't seem to be any monitoring in place. I know in the area committee, if you give somebody
Sorry to interrupt, David. Can you give us a specific reference that you're...
Well, it's contracts, grants and partnerships. It's regarding the money that we give to other bodies to do things. There's nothing to say that they're doing what they got the money to do. As I say, in the area committee, you give £3,000 or £4,000 away, you want reports back for these people to ensure that they've used the money as they said they were going to use it. And yet here we're probably given 10 times that or plus to different bodies, either as through a contract, through grants or just in partnership. And there's nothing to say that the money is being used that it should be used. It's just I think that's something that we really need to get our teeth into and get sorted out pretty quickly, I would have thought.
Thank you for that, Councillor McKee. I can assure members that officers are monitoring how the money is spent. I think the point that we're making here is that we haven't actually developed formal risk registers for that specific function. And it's not only the fact that you need to develop a risk register, it should be in covalent so you can actually see what we're doing, and that's what needs developing. And there are a number of these risks, operational risks, that we would refer to in Appendix 1, which need further development. You're absolutely right. We need to formalise that and get that in covalent to show that we are monitoring it. But I can assure members that it's being monitored.
Satisfied with the response, David? Right, okay. Willie?
Could I return you were asked a question, Alistair, about grants in reference to page 38 and your matrix on 41. The inability or delay, where it says risk description, inability, delay, deliver and delivering PES-led projects, including LDP, SHIP, regeneration, etc. Where are we in terms of grants? And you were asked the question more than just EU, but grants like the Coastal Community Fund, and in particular reference to the waterfront in terms of moving the projects forward. We have invested 2.4 million of council money, and it's whether we've drawn down on any external funding to move that forward much quicker than what it's moving just now. What's the impact and the ability to draw down?
Well, there are these grants and money is obviously available to make a bid for. On the Coastal Communities Grant, I don't have any knowledge in my head of an application we've made to that or any success or not, so I'll have to get back to you on that. There's also the European, it slipped my mind, the current European Fisheries Grant flag money as well. Now, again, the details of that, I don't wish to speculate because I think this has been recorded. I don't want to mislead members in any way, so I'll have a discussion with my staff to see what applications we've actually made there and report back to members on that.
Just before we come in, Willie, it was remiss of me, colleagues, not to remind you, though I'd be surprised if anyone does need reminding that the meeting is being recorded.
Members' information is surely more important than whether we're recording or not, Chair. The point being that we have investment in the waterfront. We were looking for that investment to move forward. It does not look like it is moving forward other than a for sale sign having been put up. We are working in partnership with the Stena line in terms of the marketing. It's the projects that have already been agreed and monies allocated that do not seem to be moving forward. We have asked the Chief Executive to give us a timeline on the projects that have already been agreed, but it's working alongside that in using what money is available just now to match fund it to external funding like European funding, like the coastal community, and we're maximising the ability to move forward much quicker than we are. And it's that risk associated with public confidence in the council delivering the projects that it said it would do, and that there is a timeline attached to it. Could we have perhaps more detail on that one from the director as to how it is moving forward and how successful we are, so that we don't fall into slow delivery or slippage?
Yes, Chair, I'll come back and advise members where exactly we are with that. I'm not briefed this morning to give you an exact answer on that.
Well, can I suggest that you respond by email to all members of the committee in relation to the specific issue? Okay?
I'll certainly do that, Chair.
Right. Any other issues? Well, can we go then to section 2 of the report, and we're being asked to decide whether or not the risk management arrangements in this service are adequate. We have raised various comments, questions. We have had the responses to these. I take it that we are basically of the view that the risk management arrangements in this service are adequate, albeit we'll get the specific response from Mr Speedy to the question that Councillor Scobie has raised, that the last question that Councillor Scobie raised. So on that basis, can I take it that you are in agreement that we do in fact consider the risk management arrangements for this service to be adequate, colleagues? Okay, thank you. Right, colleagues, the next item on the agenda is item number 7, which is the draft annual governance statement for 2013-14, and it's a report by the Director of Chief Executive Service. The report deals with the Council's draft annual governance statement for 2013-14. The governance statement should be an open and transparent assessment of the organisation's performance across all of its activities, with a clear statement of the actions being taken or required to address areas of concern. This statement will form part of the unaudited accounts. We've been asked to comment on the draft statement for inclusion in the 2013-14 accounts. I'll ask Mr Haswell, before opening discussion to members, I'll ask Mr Haswell, first of all, if he has anything he wishes to add to the report, after which he'll take questions. Alex?
I think, Chairman, I'll just answer questions from members. The report's there. It is an evidence report in that it's based on concrete evidence which officers have.
Okay. Graham?
Thanks, Chair. It's on page 52. It's the bottom of page 52. Whistleblowing and receiving investigating complaints from the public. Obviously, you've got a process and process there to deal with that, and obviously there's a paragraph there about it. What process is for an elected member there? I don't see any process for an elected member to make a complaint about the service of the council or a complaints procedure in the council. I don't mean about an elected member making a complaint about another elected member through Standards Commission. What complaints process can an elected member take something forward if a ward issue has not been satisfied over a period of time within their ward? What process can we deal with other than if it's a long saga?
I would hope it wouldn't be a long saga, sir, although there are those in the room who would probably disagree with me. The bottom line is that you have the EMES system. Members there is a provision within that system for an issue which is not being addressed on behalf of a constituent to be moved through the chain of command until it eventually gets to the Chief Executive. So there is a complaints process in there. You would not take members through a formal complaints process because at the end of the day, you are the council. The complaints process that this alludes to deals with complaints against the council.
In theory, if I'm an elected member, I'm part of the council, I should be right to make a complaint.
You take it through the EMES process, sir, and it gets accelerated through officers till eventually it reaches the Chief Executive, and the Chief Executive would then deal with it. The complaints process that this alludes to relates to the public making a complaint against the council, which eventually they have the right to take to the Ombudsman, Scottish Public Services Ombudsman. Members of the council do not have that recourse to go to the Scottish Public Services Ombudsman.
I'm not sure if you're entirely satisfied with the response. Do you want to come back?
I know where Mr Hassell's coming from, but I'll have a think about this one, please. I will be coming back sometime for another report.
Okay. Willie?
Yeah, Chair, it's along the same lines, and it's relating to 3.4, but we've got all the other service committees, and from community service to scrutiny and so forth. But this is the measuring, and the Director referred to EMES, and we've constantly raised this with the Chief Executive in terms of that we have got a 3-day response to elected members' inquiry services, if it is capable of being answered within that day, any inquiry that a member has on behalf of a constituent. If it requires a substantive reply, we then have 15 days. And those 15 days, you should get a substantive reply. It's what follows thereafter. If that reply is not to a satisfactory level, and then the member feels that they haven't had the answer on behalf of a ward member, or indeed him or herself, and then it is what follows thereafter. There is no further measurement from the 15 days. And this could go on, forever and ever and a day. And the director has referred to it being a complaint, and then the complaint goes to the chief executive for resolving. That is nowhere in the member protocol. It is not recognised in the member protocol that that's part of a complaints procedure for a member. All it gives you is 3 and 15 days. It is totally unsatisfactory in terms of measuring the performance of a department in replying or answering the members' queries. Because, in departments you can have a query going on for months and months and months and months, and no satisfactory answer, or anywhere near to a satisfactory answer. How, as the Audit Committee, do we address, and it's really a question of yourself, Chair, in terms of how can we audit something that we have nothing to mark against?
Mr Hazel, would you care to respond in the first instance?
Yes, sir. There is a report coming to the Parent Committee, which I think is the CCS Committee, regarding the operation of EMES. At that point, there'll be an opportunity to refine the processes in terms of EMES. I do take on board the point that Councillor Scobie is making. I'm not disagreeing with the point. If a member doesn't get a reply within 15 days, then it should be accelerated and there should be something done. I think that happens fairly regularly, but the bottom line is it's not anywhere written down, therefore it becomes a difficult issue. EMES is not difficult to monitor. If you don't get a reply within 3 days, it's marked that you've not had a reply. If you don't get a reply within 15 days, it's marked that you've not had a reply. I take the point. It's what happens after the 15 days that's the issue, and we are looking at EMES. There is a report coming to CCS, and we will be asking for members to look at refining the system so that it does make provision for that.
Of what timescale are we talking about the relevant report coming before CCS, Mr Haswell?
My understanding is it will be before the recess, sir. I can't remember whether it's June or July committee, but it's before the recess. EMES will then have been in operation for 1 year, so we're able to monitor and report back and say this is how it has operated and look at how we refine it. I have colleagues currently writing the report, sir. But
given your response to Councillor Scobie, I mean, you do accept, in fact, that there's a massive lacuna, for want of a better term, without sounding legalistic, in relation to what happens with regard to such matters post the 15-day period. And you, if I understand you correctly, you have given an assurance that this issue will be raised and developed as part of the relevant report to the CCS committee.
At the risk of incurring your wrath, Chairman, I wouldn't describe it as a massive lacuna. I would describe it as an issue that has come forward. Everyone assumes in the perfect world that every member will get a reply within 3 days or 15 days. That is clearly an issue which Councillor Scobie has raised with the Chief Executive and myself on several occasions. We will be looking forward and we'll come back. We accept that there is an issue there and we will bring that forward to enable members to look at it and get some advice from members and guidance from members on how they want to take it forward.
Put it this way, Mr Haswell, if I have created any false impression in relation to my use of the term a massive lacuna, I would regret that. But I do think, without trivialising what is an extremely valid and important point, that this is an area where we are going to have to address it, put in place a process which will be capable of being monitored, etc., and assessed as to its effectiveness or otherwise. I think that's the point, without putting words in Councillor Scobie's mouth, that's what he wants to raise. You want to come back, Willie, and then Graham.
Absolutely, Chair. However you want to describe it, as a laguna, a hernia, or whatever, then what we're being asked to do is accept, and we have nothing other than to accept what's been said by the Director, that there will be a report going up sometime in June or July. This has been ongoing for some time. It has not had, or at least been referred to scrutiny to look at, and for scrutiny to cast its eye over in terms of what the issues are. It's not just in CCS, although CCS is the parent committee responsible for the monitoring of EMES. What we're seeing here is poor performance in departments in responding, not just to see it written down that you will get a reply by X, should you not have it within 15 days, but it's the performance of individual departments in responding to members' inquiries. Now, some of these can be very serious issues in terms of children asked about anything. And I don't think for an audit committee it's entirely that we just say, right, we're getting a report June, July, because this is its year of infancy in terms of EMIS. It was brought in to improve on the performance, at least to measure it. We now have a measure of the performance, and I think that this is a serious enough that we should be wanting a much closer scrutiny and a report back much sooner, if that is at all possible.
Mr Haswell, do you wish to respond before I ring Councillor Bellin?
Sir, the system will have been in operation for 1 year in June. We undertook to report back to members after a year's performance to see how the system was working and see if there were any requirements to refine the system. That's the undertaking I'm giving to this committee today. I'm sorry, sir, we are in the course of writing the report. I don't have that report available to bring to members, and in any event it will go to the CCS committee, which is the parent committee for this function.
Thank you. Councillor Graham.
Thanks, Chair. Just going back to what Councillor Scobie was saying, he's made some valid points there, but obviously it's going to, I think it needs to go to the scrutiny committee to obviously be discussion thrashed out with members on how to go forward. But I still think we should have an right to members have the right to make a complaint other than EMS. We need a robust process here, because there's going to be severe risk to the council if we don't get this process right. Sometimes council members, elected members and wards, issues are going on for a long time and EMS is not sorting it out. So it really needs to be dealt with in a robust fashion, and we need to have this watertight.
I certainly wouldn't disagree or quibble with your sentiments. Obviously, I would envisage that I won't be writing the report, but I would envisage that these comments, valid and all as they are, would be incorporated in the report, which will ultimately go to the CCS committee.
I confirm that, sir.
Sorry, beg pardon. Anyone else, any other comments they wish to make? No. Okay. Well, on that basis, can we go back to the section number 2 of the report on page 43. We're being asked to note and comment on the draft annual governance statement and delegate to the Director of Chief Executive Services to make further revisions as required. We've certainly commented on various aspects of it. You've heard Mr Haswell and his response. Can we have a summing up, Lucy, of what essentially we agreed?
We have heard comments in relation to the annual government statement. All relevant points will be noted in the minute, and a report has been undertaken to go to the EES in relation to the complaints procedure. All relevant points will be added into the minute.
Okay, so we're noting and we're appreciating then that arising from discussion of the annual governance statement, there will be a report which will go to the CCS committee before the recess, council recess this year, which will deal with the process and the procedures to be adopted, as it were, to deal with EMIS inquiries post the relevant 15-day period, and that report will set out robust and transparent, I would like to think, procedures to deal with such outstanding issues which remain thereafter. Graham?
Here, will this be discussed at a scrutiny committee in front of the elected members? I don't see that been mentioned there.
Well, sorry, Mr Haswell?
There's no provision. Scrutiny committee works in a particular way, and it would be for members on the scrutiny committee to determine what their workload is going to be. If they determine they want to look at EMES or complaints by councils, that would be a matter for them. That's the way they operate. You have no remit to give them a remit, so to speak. Can I just ask, Chairman, the draft governance statement, I've got to pass it to the auditors. EMES is but one facet of it, which is being dealt with as work in progress. can I take it the governance statement is accepted by members to go forward to the external auditors, because I've got a deadline on the 30th of June to meet?
Well, that was my understanding. I was merely flagging up that there was one area where elected members felt, in fact, that there were legitimate and genuine concerns, and you've explained to the committee how these will be dealt with. And I'm sure, in response to your comments to Councillor Bell, a judicious word or two in the right quarters, and I'm sure that the Scrutiny Committee would be more than keen to pick it up at the appropriate time and take it forward. Yeah. Thank you. Moving on to the next item, item 8. This report deals with performance against internal audit action plans, and it's a report again by the Director of Chief Executive Service. It's a performance report which allows the committee to assure itself that control issues previously addressed by internal audit and reported to the committee have been addressed by management appropriately and timeously. I'm pleased to note, and I'm sure you will be as well, colleagues, that there are no overdue actions from previous periods, and that 23 out of the 24 recommendations due for completion by the end of this month have been completed. There's one action outstanding, and we've been asked to agree an extension of time in relation to this. This relates to an independent completeness check on the issuing of debit accounts at Dumfries Ice Bowl, and the suggestion is that they be given a further quarter for completion. I'm sure that Kevin Geraghty will answer any questions pertaining to his report, and I'll open this up to members for comment and question after Kevin has indicated that you don't wish to add anything to the report. No. Okay, colleagues, over to the committee. Patsy.
Well, it is on the ice bowl, and I've just wondered if Mr. Geraghty could... I don't quite understand why there were difficulties implementing this. I mean, was it just staffing, or was it... I mean, what's been the problem here? Because it seems quite straightforward when you read, and when you were asked to do that. I just would like to know what the problem is.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's a matter of staffing. There is to be some kind of realignment of staffing over the summer. So in fact, the service has said, could we get that sorted out first? And as part of that restructuring or shuffle, we'll make sure that procedures are developed such as that there is this independent check. It's basically as much money as possible, ideally, is taken up front. So when people make bookings and these sorts of things, that's the ideal. But there are a number of people who receive accounts. The way it works is bookings are diarised, and then subsequently somebody goes through the bookings diary and picks up the accounts that are to be issued. And in effect, we're saying that that's being done by the people that are issuing the account. We'd like somebody else as a double check just to go over the diary and make absolutely sure that everything that should have been billed has been billed. So it is a completeness check, that's all. We didn't see any problems in the issuing of debtors' accounts, so we hadn't found any that have been overlooked or missed, but it's a protection that we asked for, and they're quite happy to accept that. They've just asked for a little bit more time.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Vice Chair, sorry.
Thanks, Gary. I'm just looking at the last one in page 69, which is the management of data protection. Now, I know that the dates for these are still to be still to come in, but I'm just wondering if there's an overview going on from internal audit with regards to the management of data protection risks in social work services, so that the work that they say they're actually going to do is actually being done.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I have a sticky button. That's a problem. Yes, we recognised, we collectively recognised that social work services was one of the higher risk areas for data protection work. So this was the first audit that was done. We've done one subsequently on education as well, and other departments will be done in turn. We agreed we'd do 2 a year for 3 years. So social work services, if you like, is the dry run on this. We gave them a bit more time for a variety of reasons. There were a fair number of recommendations, and some of these will be challenging for them to deliver on. None of them are due yet, as you'll see from the tracking. But the short answer is yes. In terms of general processes, what do we do when we follow these things up? If we have a discussion with the department on each thing, they report back to us on what their progress has been, and we usually have a discussion with them on exactly how they've implemented and that sort of stuff. It's part of a challenge process. There are one or two difficult areas for them which we're aware of, And so we tend to, if we get a rather blasé response or what we consider to be an oversimple response, and this applies generally on any recommendations tracking, we do follow it up reasonably closely. We'd ask to see documentation, we'd ask to see a process that's in place, these sorts of things. Particularly in relation to data protection risks and social work services, the range of offices, the number of challenges that they face and so on, we are aware that it's going to be difficult for them. Overall, they are quite successful. They are aware of the issues involved in this. So we're confident they can deliver on these recommendations, but we will be following it up reasonably closely, let's put it that way. It's something we want them to keep as a live issue in their service. It's not something that you pick up and put down. It's a constant attention needs to be given to it, and we're confident that we can assist towards that and make sure that management keep their eye on it.
Willie?
Yeah, Chair, I don't know if my question may be unfair of Kevin. I'm looking at the report and particularly the headings, and that's the laid down work that I presume that you have looked at in terms of each of the departments and the risks associated with the audit. I'm just looking at this, Chair, and maybe seek your guidance along with Kevin's as the officer. And that's in terms of our pay systems that we have introduced, where we're going to try for this system that they only use cards, etc., whether that is indeed having an impact on people's accounts in terms of council tax payments, etc. I seek your guidance on this one, Chair, in terms of the communication that's going out from the finance department to say anyone who pays by phone, then they put their number of their card in or whatever it is. But there was difficulty in respect of this year's yearly accounts, and thousands of people were getting letters to say that they were in arrears and had to make a one-off payment when indeed the fault lay with the council. I appreciate, Chair, it's not in the report, but I seek your guidance on it in terms of delivery of service.
Thank you. Do you have sufficient information to answer the question?
I'm sorry, Chair, I don't, because I'm not familiar with the exact details what the Council is referring to. In item 11 coming up, which is our audit plan for 2014, members will be aware that revenue systems get a look at this year. So can I suggest that the point that Councillor Scobie is making will be addressed during the course of the year? We tend to pick up on issues of that kind when we're building the audit plan for it. So I'm quite happy to bring that away from this meeting and actually capture it as something that we need to be looking at, if that's okay.
I think that would be a fair way of dealing with it. Right. Thank you. Any other members, any other points they wish to raise? Failing which we'll go to section 2 of the report. Again, we're asked to note and comment on the progress made in implementing internal audit recommendations as detailed, and you'll see in fact that there is only the one issue which is outstanding. What I would say, without indulging in leaving myself open to the accusation of indulging in semantics, I think that, page 67, the item box 11, there are difficulties with implementing this under the current staffing structure, but proposed changes for the summer should make it possible. Can I suggest that we might wish to firm that up a bit and say will make it possible? I think, we've already given one extension, and I don't think it's unreasonable in circumstances, so I would suggest, in fact, we change it, from should to will, with all that connotes. Thank you very much. Then moving on to item number 9 on the agenda. As you've already heard, colleagues, will defer consideration of item 9A. Again, Kevin, as the report author here, situation is that there have been 4 internal audit reports issued, and the reports themselves have been circulated to members separately. I understand, Mr. Hazel, in passing, that there may have been issues and that certain members did not get copies of these reports until this morning. I think at least in one case, and possibly more than one case. I'm sorry, I meant to speak to you before the meeting. I only picked it up literally when I was coming in. So can we make sure, in fact, that, sorry, you know, got that at all, Councillor McKee?
Haven't received any at all.
Chair, sorry, can I give my apologies to the committee? Normally we try and send these out 7 days in advance, and unfortunately we were looking for final clearance on one of the reports. It was a matter of semantics, not of any matter of substance, but there was a little bit of discussion about a particular presentation. As a result, the reports were not posted out, unfortunately, till Thursday, for which I give my apologies. We had understood that there were deliveries on Friday, so we were quite hopeful. They all went out first class Thursday, so we were quite hopeful you would receive them. But obviously there were difficulties with the post. So I do apologise, Chair. And as I say, it's partly because we got caught up, I think, in the bank holiday weekend. But I do give my apologies to the committee for that.
Okay, they're noted and accepted. Do you feel that we've already agreed to defer what consideration of 9A? I mean, I would prefer not to defer consideration of B, C and D. How do you feel about it, colleagues? I'm in your hands. Sorry?
Extra you, Chair. Members haven't got these.
Certain members haven't.
I got mine this morning because mine weren't posted out to me. They were in the group room, so I literally got mine at 9:30 this morning. So I...
If members, I don't like the idea of business stacking up for the next meeting, but if members feel that it would be appropriate in the circumstances to defer consideration of the other 3 reports, I, for my part, would have no quibble with that, because I think it's important, if we're going to do the work of this committee properly, that members come having read the relevant reports and come fully briefed and armed with issues that they want to raise. In your hands, colleagues, what do you want to do? Councillor Bryan.
Thanks, Chair. Again, I only received these when I came into the office this morning. That was the first sight I've had of them. I don't think members can give due consideration with that short notice and the amount of information that has to be gone through. So I would propose deferment, Chair.
Right, I think that's a point well made and certainly well taken as far as I'm concerned. Alistair?
I seem to be the odd one out, Chair. I can confirm I received mine by post on Good Friday, but as the only person, perhaps the only person here, I did receive it earlier. I can appreciate what Brian's saying.
George?
Chair, I can go along exactly with what Alistair's saying. I think I got mine. I think it was Friday, I think. So, but I'm quite happy to if it's, you feel it should be deferred.
I also got mine timelessly, and I would thank Kevin and his staff for that. But the blunt fact of the matter is, as Brian says, the Deputy Leader says that we cannot participate properly if these reports have not been issued timelessly and members have been given the opportunity to go through them and scrutinise them. So on that basis, regrettably, I would propose to defer consideration of 9, B, C and D to the next meeting of this committee. Okay? Moving on to item number 10. This is a progress report on the 2013-14 annual internal audit plan, and the appendix sets out the work undertaken for each task by days. The key parts of the audit plan have been successfully completed, and I'm sure that members will have questions for Kevin on individual facets and aspects of the plan. Do you have anything to add to your report, Kevin? Okay, over to you, colleagues. Yes, Vice Chair.
Thanks, Chair. Just looking at the planned work that you've done, Kevin, and the reports are all finalised by a look down the right-hand column in the notes side of things. Is there anything that you feel that you require to put into the plan for the next report, actually, to make sure that we get the desired outcomes that we would require as an Audit and Risk Committee?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, there is some work that's rolling over into the new financial year, the new audit year. What we tend not to do, what I've not historically have done, is I give you a defined amount of time, 690 days, out of which we try and deliver a programme of work, and that's what we report on. Rollover work is carried out, if you like, separately, out of a separate budget. It's carried out of the management and admin budget. Now, if that gets out of hand, or too intrusive, it starts to really muck up the audit plan, we get out of balance. But generally speaking, we can handle it. And on this occasion, I think the two pieces of work which we're continuing to do, which are extension work on the creditor systems. Both of those, I think we can handle reasonably well from the provision that we've got in the plan under what's called management and admin. So I am confident that we don't need any specific budget in the forthcoming plan, in the 2014 plan, to deal with rolled over work.
Sorry, I beg pardon. On that basis, can we go to section 2 of the report? We've been asked to note and comment on the progress made. We've done that, and to note that the Chief Internal Auditor's annual Controls Assurance Statement will be reported to the next meeting of the committee in June. Noted also? Thank you. Moving on to the next report, which is item number 11. This is the Internal Audit Strategic Plan for 2014 to 2017 and the annual plan for the current financial year 2014-15. It's a report by the Director of Chief Executive Services. I think we previously agreed that members would want to have input into future audit work plans, and this, colleagues, is our opportunity to do so today. Kevin, Mr. Garrity, has set out in the appendix to the report a strategic plan for the 3-year period from 2014 to 2017 and an annual plan for the current financial year. You'll note that while a large proportion of the plan has to be given to controls assurance work, provision has been made for direct work requests in the areas of departmental business systems and risk management evaluation work, both of which I'm sure you'll agree are extremely important areas. There's also a provision for unplanned audit work. There was a considerable amount of unplanned audit work done last financial year, indeed 86 days as opposed to 20 planned days. Kevin advises that this was down to the director. Perhaps, you can interpret that whichever way you choose, colleagues. Perhaps we should look at making more provision for unplanned work. You'll note, having gone through the report, 110 days have been left for members to allocate, and we can either do that now or as we go through the year. I'm in your hands in that particular aspect. What I would draw your attention to, colleagues, if you go to the top of page 79, you will see, in fact, that Kevin has set out suggested areas for utilising these 110 days. My own personal preference would be, if possible today, to allocate as many of these as we can, filling which we can perhaps leave a certain residue available. On that basis, then, Kevin, I think you don't have anything to add to the report, Kevin. On that basis, then, can we take matters forward as accords, colleagues? Willie.
Yeah, Chair, I could back on the point I was making and perhaps elaborate more. And this had to do with the integration of services from CCS in terms of revenue sections, payments across the counter in one-stop shops, and then it was moved to the library. And I think it was a move towards, is it the moneyless system where people don't have the ability to pay across the counter? And there's a number of ways they can pay direct by direct debit. They can pay off their bank card in phoning through to the department and giving numbers of it, and so forth and so on, paying to post offices and what have you. It's to examine under audit the effectiveness and the efficiency of that system. And I say this in that I had a member of the ward, a ward member in front of me, and he was saying that each time he phoned, the individual was told that you didn't know anything on your account, and that the system wasn't working. That's the telephone system. When in fact he is moving into 2014-15 of payment, and that's his option of choosing how he paid his council tax. So the information coming back was that the system was down, and whatever. The risk to that is that thousands of people in choosing to go that way may end up with an arrears letter and saying, you now have lost your option in pay-up, you've got to make a one-off payment. And I think it needs some scrutiny as to how effective the system of integration, moving towards moneyless transaction, for want of a better term for me anyway, and the effect that will have on thousands of council taxpayers. Could I go on, Chair, and see under what you refer to the top of page 79?
Can I suggest that we deal with okay. The first point you made, Willie?
Chairman, can I maybe comment, because Councillor Scobie referred to thousands of people getting letters because they had to pay their council tax. Insofar as the Council Tax Office is concerned, as of 10 minutes ago, only normal reminder letters have been sent out for payments due on the 1st of April. There is a possibility of someone paid a payment scheduled for 14-15 before the 15th of March. It had been allocated to our 13-14 account, and we would pick that up administratively. So I'm going to speak to Councillor Scobie, because I'm not aware, and I've asked the council tax people, they're not aware of all these demand letters going out.
Okay, right. George?
Chair, when Councillor Scobie brought this up originally, you know, about letters going out, the first thing that suddenly went through my mind was letters which came from a firm down in Preston or somewhere, which was a totally different issue. And that was the first thing that came into my mind, these letters that were sent out, and it was something to do with the second homes tax and all the rest of it. So whether that was what Councillor Scobie was referring to or not, I don't know. But there certainly were a lot of letters went out regarding that subject.
I think you can confirm, Willie, that was not the case.
Indeed, that was not the case, George. And the point being made by Alex, I'm pleased to hear that there has not been, because it was anticipated they would be. So I'm pleased to hear that they are not. But it's the system. And having heard the recorded message on communication, I still think it's worthy of some investigation and clarification on that.
Well, I think we can give you that. We'll give you that assurance. In fact, that we will, you know, on the back of what you've just said, you know, give further consideration to that. And if in fact it's felt that it should be a topic, as it were, for some of the unallocated days. With Kevin's suggestion as to what the possible timing would be, or the number of days we can incorporate that, for instance, at the next meeting. We did say that, or I did say that I would like to see as much of the allocation of 110 days take place today as possible. But you know, I accept that, you know, it would be prudent to have a residual element left. To Vice Chair.
Thanks, Chair, and I agree with that. And I think maybe it's an opportunity for Kevin to take away and give us advice how many days he would actually require on the issues that we're actually going to take forward. And with regard to taking that particular one forward, I would like to see, looking at the bullet points on the top page 79, is certainly 5 of those particular ones, and that being kinship care payments, direct care payments, travel and subsistence payments, higher paid duty payments, and overtime payments. And that's certainly 5 of the issues I'd like to see an audit report back to this committee on in that particular time frame.
That's very helpful indeed, Archie. As I say, that's a good. That I've no doubt that will take up a good chunk of the available resource. Bearing in mind as well that, as I say, as the point that Willie has raised, if we can get quantification of that, that would be a sixth work stream, for want of a better term. Anyone else? Any other issues which David?
I'm not quite sure about the pool cars. A question I would ask is, are they insured 24 hours a day, or are they just insured for working hours? Just in case there's people got pool cars who happen to take them home and then use them later on. There may be some places where that's authorised, like the social work, where they get call-outs, that sort of thing. But it's maybe something that they maybe need to look at. And compliance with policy and out of hours use of council vehicles, that would be more likely to cover the vehicles that's got the badges on them rather than the pool cars. But Certainly, there's questions on pool cars I would like answered, I think.
Mr. Haswell.
I think members may recall. I think you got a report on the use of pool cars last financial year or the financial year before. Is my mind 3 ago?
Chair, yes.
We're having a dialogue.
It doesn't time fly. Yes, pool cars, it would be a follow-up. We did do a piece of work shortly after the scheme was introduced. One of the drivers for that was to say, are we getting the value from the scheme that we thought we were? Because members will recall it was being introduced not for convenience purposes, but it was being introduced because it was felt to be more cost effective. What we discovered at that particular time was that the unit cost per mile of a pool car was exactly the same as paying a member of staff to use their own car. But shortly after that, a change occurred in the tax situation where use of own cars went up in price, if you like, for the council, which would immediately make pool cars more cost effective. And with better use of pool cars, that would have brought down the unit cost per mile, which was the original target. But the scheme has been expanded slightly. The other big discussion members had about it at the time was to do with bookings and availability of cars and so on, which a number of people still experience some issues in connection with that. But it only ever delivered, the pool car scheme only was delivering something like 25 to 30% of the travel requirements. So again, it's a scheme that needs further development and progression. So it was an opportunity to sort of follow up on our previous work and perhaps look at whether or not, how much scope there was for a continued expansion in it. That was the thinking behind that particular one, Chair.
Well, can I say, from a personal perspective, Kevin, on the back of what you've just said, I would be totally supportive, in fact, of including that as a work stream. And apart from anything else, it would be of benefit to some of us to find out just exactly how you can get your hands on a pool car and in relation to the disparate rural region, which is Dumfries and Galloway. But I would like nothing better, let me say for the record, but as I say, that's another issue. So can I take it, do I have your leave to suggest, in fact, that we include that, as it were, as another work stream, make it 6, plus the issue that Willie has raised? Okay?
Chair, can I modestly point this out to you? We have 60 days in this category. Now, we can jinx some other elements of the plan if that's what you want. If you see the importance of our workers sitting in this area, I'll have to adjust the plan because 60 days wouldn't be enough to cover the 6 work streams you've mentioned. In connection with Councillor Scobie's suggestions, we are doing a council tax audit this year. We will, therefore, as a result of his representations, have a look at payment methodologies and efficiencies and stuff to do with that. It is, again, I've trimmed back the amount of time for that particular audit, so it's fairly tight as things stand, but I'd want to have another look at the time, therefore. If we're going to move into options to pay and that sort of stuff, I might need to add to that time, so I'll have a look at the plan there. But certainly I'd expect to cover Councillor Scobie's thoughts within that, so we wouldn't need a separate audit for it. The other issues, as I say, in connection with these are topics which I was aware that members might well have a particular interest in. And yes, I'd like to do as many as possible. But again, we could be looking at, if you want, saying, well, we'll do this over a 2-year, we'll do all of these over a 2-year cycle. Or if you want them all done this year, I'll have to look at other elements of the plan and see what I can hack back on.
Okay, Wally and then Patsy.
Yeah, Chair, I'm not actually sure what the 5 were, actually, but we could be reminded.
Kinship care payments, direct care payments, travel and subsistence payments, higher duty payments, overtime payments, to which I was proposing the adding of pool cars, and as you've heard, Kevin, the point that that you have raised, he would incorporate into the relevant wider report. Good. Yes.
If I could come back and totally endorse what's been said so far in terms of how we can manage the 60 days within all the work streams there. On kinship care, this is one that I've been raising at social work for a considerable time in terms of people that are outlying payment for whatever reason, and I would like that looked at. Some have not had payment or did not receive payment for whatever reason, which when we're looking for kinship carers, we should be trying to maximise the efficiency of that one. I'm not actually sure what direct care payments are we talking about here in terms of a person receiving as a direct payment that give of care, because there is an issue in here in terms of while it's for the first 5 years, as was described to the Social Work Committee, that was the introduction of personalisation, and the next 5 years is to roll it out. And there are people who are waiting an inordinate time to get any kind of information on personalisation, which is related to direct personalised care payments or whatever it's called. So I just want clarification on that one, Chair, on these two, but it's something that needs close look at and scrutinised.
Kevin?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, on kinship care payments, it's not a brand new area, and as you say, there's been representations made that councils should be doing this for some years. We had a quick look at it a few years back. So again, the sort of coming round, my view would be, yes, I think we need to have another look at it. And certainly in terms of policies around entitlement and eligibility and payments made, there'd be emphasis in the audit on that. On direct care, yes, it's exactly that, it's personalisation. Last time we looked at this, there were 8 people in receipt of what we call direct care. So again, it's some years since we looked at this. The landscape has changed significantly. And again, it's an area I'd want to have a close look at and make sure that what the council's doing is sensible and the controls are in place to govern this as well. So as I say, these suggestions were based on my understanding of what the council's, of what the committee's interests were likely to be, but they also serve my interest in the sense of they're following up on stuff that we had done previously and they're timely to do again.
Patsy, and then Vice Chair.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think to do them over a 2-year period would probably be a more realistic approach to it. But I'm just wondering how we sort of prioritise them, because I'm not sure about what the driver was for the internal charging audit. I mean, could we be more efficient? Is that one that we should be dealing with, you know, sooner rather than later, if it makes the council work better, if the things, but I'm not sure what the drivers are for it, and I haven't a clue about the software licensing, what the implications for that are. So I just wonder if you could help with that.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, well spotted, that councillor. They're the sort of outliers on this listing. Internal charging was something we've come across where some penalty payments are being imposed by some departments on other departments. It's not very extensive, we think, but it is an issue that I would want to have a look at. It's not pressing in the sense that, you know, a department's receiving these and is complaining to us about their receipt of these penalties in inverted commas. That's why we picked up with that one. And again, with software licensing, there's a suggestion that this is an area that's well managed by Business and Technology Solutions. We've actually made savings over the years as a council by being very efficient in our use of software licenses. We have a system at the moment in connection with some licenses where you have seats, you buy a certain number of seats, and when those seats are full, so 50 people are using the system, nobody can join the conference or log on to that software till somebody else comes off. And that's a very effective way at managing your costs on software licensing. But there are 1 or 2 legacy systems kicking about where we're still paying software licenses, either because there hasn't been sufficient progress in closing down the old system, archiving the data, all that sort of stuff. So we were going to have a look at that and see if there were any issues there. But again, it's not pressing, it's not particularly pressing.
I just wonder how we do, if we leave that to Mr. Geraghty to decide which way around he does it, or whether we prioritise with his advice. I mean, I think, having heard about the pool cars, I think that's sort of overdue one, if I'm being honest. And I hope when you do it, you will go back to the original as well, and so we have a comparison. Yeah, cause I think, and same with the direct care payments. That would be, we get a full picture would be really useful. But I'm not quite sure how you want to prioritise it, Chairman.
We can talk about that, you know, some more. Archie?
Yeah, Chair, it's just coming, I mean, the strategic plan is 2014 till 17, so we've got actually 3 years. And looking at the input from members, we did say that we wanted input to the strategic plan for audit and risk in this particular thing. Now, that would make 10 particular bullet points within the strategic plan for 2014-17. I wonder, Kevin, if it would be appropriate, as Patsy says, how do you put the prioritisation into these particular things to come forward with all of those, after listening to what you say about, you know, software license, internal charging, to put those into the 3-year plan and come back with a prioritisation report to the actual audit committee to say we're happy with that outcome, and then go forward that way.
Kevin?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think that's a good suggestion. I mean, we wanted to give you the opportunity to have input to it and see what your interests and emphasis were. Certainly, next committee's in June. It's not that far away. We've already started work on some of the elements in the plan, but they're the fixed elements, so to speak. So the discretionary elements we'll come back to you on, perhaps with a suggestion for priorities. And as I say, I'll have a look at the plan again and see if I can generate more time for this area, because as I say, there's a reasonable degree of choice here. Nominally, I was looking for 2 jobs from this listing, or at most 3. So you've come up with 6. So I'll have to go away and sharpen my pencil, I think, in 1 or 2 areas. But I'll come back to you at the next meeting, if you like, Chair, with some emphasis on this. Can I also just mention, the other areas within the plan that I was suggesting you have a look at are the procurement work. We have 30 days set aside for a piece of work on procurement. So ideas for that would be most welcome in terms of, is there a particular area that you would want us to look at in connection with procurement? But we've also looked at performance management. We've got a cycle again. I'm trying to do a performance management audit once a year for the next 3 years. So there's a bit of time in there as well available. But that's perhaps if you want to have a think about that, if there's any particular aspect of performance management that you think would benefit from audit, that would be very helpful to have the committee's understanding or concerns, if there are any, about that area too.
Well, can I suggest, from a personal point of view, that, yes, we seek to prioritise them. We get some indication of what would be the anticipated number of days that would be involved in each of them. And we should be bearing in mind, of course, that we have an extra 50 days there under the heading of Risk Management Programme. Now, I appreciate that risk management is an extremely important area of activity also, and I'm not suggesting that we plunder the 50 days and don't do any risk management work, but I think perhaps I would suggest that we don't come to any conclusions in relation to that heading today, find out just exactly what the Departmental Financial Systems Programme that we've tentatively agreed today, the six issues, and the proposed prioritisation of these would lead us to, and then decide the timescale, whether it should be over 2 years or indeed 3 years, and take it from there. Would that be a reasonable way forward, colleagues? Okay, right. So we know where we're going with that one then, Lucy, do we? Okay, right, and not the strongest of staffs, I would have to say, but never mind. Anyway, I owe you an apology, David. I'm conscious of the fact that you raised an issue and it was not adequately dealt with. So I'll ask Alec to come back to it, if I may.
Thanks, Chairman. I think the issue you raised was the insurance of pool cars when people have them away out with hours at home. Yet there are people who do have a pool car where they're not readily, a pool car's not readily available at a depot or an office in close proximity. They are only done by authorisation by their manager, and once the manager authorises it, the council self-insures these pool cars, so the insurance is in place. So
it's just in case. Does everyone know that? As I say, there may be people who have the car at home and they think, God, I'll just use the pool car, it's handy and it's not insured.
All staff and indeed members have been well warned about using a pool car for other than official council business. There have been issues. I have addressed those issues with Kevin in the past, and I know that there are trackers on all the pool cars, so we know when a pool car is being used. We even know what speed it's being driven at.
I don't think you need to raise that point to Mr. Hasworth.
Well, I can think of a previous authority where it was quite clear and quite robust and quite unequivocal. But at the end of the day, using cars, pool cars, call them what you will, for other than official business was deemed to be gross misconduct, with all of that implied.
That's the response I was expecting. Thanks very much for that.
Okay, any further comments they wish to make in this particular report? So we know exactly where we're going, and we'll get a report back to the June meeting of the committee, which will allow us to determine the issues in more detail than we've done today. On that basis, I would point out that I have no further business. And I would thank you all for your attendance and, more importantly, your input at today's meeting. Thank you.